Ladies and gentlemen, when you click on a GothamChess YouTube video, you might be looking for an amazing chess game played by a Grandmaster, or you might be spending your afternoon laughing at a video where I catch chess cheaters. Well, in this video, I am combining this concept into one. We are in Riga. In the Riga Technical Institute, there is a massive chess tournament there played every year in 2021, a couple of months ago. And our protagonists are two very, very strong players, or I suppose one of them is an antagonist and one of them is a protagonist. But in this video, a Grandmaster accidentally cheated to get a win. And you might say, what the hell are you talking about? How do you accidentally cheat? And normally in chess, when you cheat, you relay moves from an engine. Well, you're about to see that that's not exactly the case. Now, you might also be a little bit confused why one of these players is not a GM when you have FM and IM. Well, that's because the player has all three Grandmaster norms and the rating and is basically just waiting for it to be approved. So they're a Grandmaster. Now, I'm going to show you the game. It's actually a really fascinating game, and then we're going to laugh at the moment where cheating occurred. D4 is played by the FIDE master from Russia, and Black responds with Knight F6, but very quickly makes it clear that they actually want to play a pawn to the center with the move D5. You don't really need to enter into this by playing Knight F6 on the first move, but we have a Slav defense and a mainline Slav defense position as early as move 4. Black here has many choices. Black can play the open Slav with DC4. Black can play the semi-Slav, which I don't really know why this is called a semi-Slav. It's like a Slav with just like Adidas pants, like not the top, just the pants. The semi-Slav is really solid. I mean, it's a really, really good opening. Black also has many, many other types of Slav iterations. The Schlachter and the Shebanenko, I believe. And in this game, we do get the A6 Slav. Now, the point of the A6 Slav is to play B5. Like, at some point, Black just wants to expand on the queen side. So that might look something like E3, B5, even. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can play B5 as early as this position. And it's an interesting line. It's confrontational. It's really interesting. Leads to some dynamic play. But Larusas from Lithuania played the move bishop to F5 here, which is a very normal developing move. Point being that, you want to get your light scored bishop out before you close it up. If you wanted to close it up, you can just play the move E6 to play the semi-Slav. And there's kind of a tension here between the pawns. At some point, one side will probably take. White now immediately takes advantage of the bishop departing the C8 square and goes to attack the pawn on B7. Black, really, in my memory, will play B5 here because now you've kind of successfully gotten your setup. White will take space and get connect 4, and chess gets played. White tries to spend some time chipping away at this pawn structure here with this pawn break A4 because the position is very closed. So when a position is closed, both sides are going to try to implement pawn breaks. Black's pawn break will try to be in the center in the future with the move E5. Maybe Black will prepare that with queen, knight, maybe bishop on G7. So, but in this game, Tomas plays Rook A7. Rook A7 is an extremely solid move. It's choosing not to commit too quickly the move B5. And yeah, I mean, as completely absurd as this move looks, I mean, it looks awful, actually, optically. It's completely fine. It's been played thousands of times. Very, very normal move. And here, Gleb Dudin plays knight to H4. And like, again, to the untrained eye, this move breaks kind of all principles that you're supposed to teach beginners. Like, don't move your pieces twice in the opening. Don't move your queen out, etc., etc., right? But this move makes sense because Black has a very difficult decision now. You're really not going to give up the bishop for the knight because that just doesn't make any sense. You want to preserve the bishop pair. You don't want to just give White 2 bishops. This bishop will come out here, pressure the center, and Black doesn't get anything good for giving up the bishop pair. Believe it or not, actually, potentially the best move here is just to bring the bishop all the way back and sort of argue that this knight is stupidly placed. But Larusas here played bishop E6. And in the post-game interview, he said, in many positions where the knight goes to H4 in the Slav defense, the bishop actually sort of slides back. I mean, like I said, you can slide it all the way back, but he chooses to slide it back in a way that he pressures the center, and this knight is sort of offside. However, you're also saying that, Black's position is also slightly bad because they're breaking certain principles like putting bishops in front of center pawns, which you're just not really supposed to do. And now, Dudin plays a fascinating move. So, of course, yes, he can play, like, natural developing stuff. He can take some space. But he chooses to blow up the center. And he chooses to blow up the center for tactical reasons. So, if black does not take, black will get completely overrun. So, he takes, and now bishop e3. Bishop e3 is good. Queen e3 is also very strong. The threat of queen e3 is you're, first of all, attacking this, but you're targeting the rook. So just a ludicrous example of a move, for example, there is this. And black loses because it's a double attack. It's a discovered attack on the rook in the corner. Queen e3 is a very, very, very sneaky move. It is setting up a threat. Black, of course, would not fall for this, but queen e3 is a possibility. Dudin plays it in a slightly different way. So what do we have going on? Well, black's development is really hindered by his own pawns. The pawns stand in the way of like natural piece movement. The piece stands in the way of pawn movement. So black's position is totally like a mess. However, black is up a pawn, which you can't really like just discredit. Black does have an extra pawn. White's knight is sort of stranded on the edge of the board. But visually, white's position is very strong, admittedly. Yes, the bishop on e3 is quite strong. The center is strong. Castling here is going to be an option. So now we have queen a5 check. The point of queen a5 is that you're trying to send white backwards a little bit. See, if white goes for a queen trade, for example, being down a pawn and now trading pieces just doesn't make much sense. So this forces white to play bishop d2 so as not to lose the right to castle. And now the queen goes back to c7. He could go back to d8, but he doesn't want to repeat moves. Like, he's trying to play for a win. So queen c7. Now, again, in this position, white can play queen e3. Queen e3 is a very good move, and it threatens d5. It forces rook a8, and Laroussas thought that his opponent was going to do something like this, and played queen h4, queen e3, where white is just better. White is now no longer down a pawn and still has all the benefits of the position that he had when he was down the pawn, except now he's not down the pawn, and therefore it's a good thing. His position is quite good. However, Dudin plays d5. So he's trying to punish whatever Laroussas is doing in this position, right? He's trying to just say like, yo, man, I mean, this is ridiculous the way you're playing. I have to punish you. I have to break forward in the center rather than just sort of playing the maneuvering move and punishing the pieces in that fashion. So here, if you take on d5, you're just going to run into trouble because I'll go queen e3, I'll go here, and all your pieces get pushed back. So bishop back to c8. This is move 12 by black. This, like, if you just look at this position, I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm just saying, if you told me A1000 was playing this with black, I'd be like, honestly, that kind of makes sense. Even though black is playing like all the best moves and dealing very well with white's pressure. It's just the position looks hilarious. White's position also looks hilarious, but at least looks like slightly more sophisticated. But the thing is, because white is sort of overextending, at some point, black is going to crack back at the center, clear out all the pressure, and just be fine. So Dudin plays queen e3. Again, he's not going to take, because that just helps black develop. You have absolutely no need to allow your opponent to get a knight into the game. The pawns are restricting the movement of the black pieces, right? So he plays queen e3, rook goes back to 8. Again, how ridiculous does this look on move 13? I mean, black just has absolutely no development, right? And now another tense moment. He can just win the pawn back. I suppose he didn't like that the knight is arriving, and now black is getting back into the game. Black is going to play g6, bishop g7. Like, you see the importance of development? That is what black needs. The knight in the game, the pawn, the bishop, get the king to safety. And then black is going to be fine. So, to kind of restrict the development of black, Dudin plays bishop c3 to activate on this very nice diagonal. He has a very nice space advantage. He controls a lot of squares on his opponent's side of the board. The problem is that because Laroussas has barely developed his pieces, he has no real weaknesses. Weaknesses in chess come when you overextend or when you abandon a side of the board or something, but he hasn't really moved anything, so he's not really weak, and he's just going to have to be precise to untangle. So he plays knight d7. And again, we have a moment. Maybe white should play long castle here just to clear the king out to the side of the board, get him out of the center, and then crack the center open with something like f3, a well-timed pawn break. If black takes on f3, then white just steamrolls here. Rook, queen, pawn down the middle. Black is now officially beyond the point of salvation. Whereas originally black was worse, but was dealing with the pressure. Now you're getting overrun. Of course, we also throw in a terrible move by black. But Point stands. Dudin could play long castle. He chooses, though, to play rook d1. I mean, what are you going to do? In chess, you have to make decisions. And there's a lot of decent-looking decisions here. So now we have knight f6, bishop e2, and the final move, e6. And black is ready to just crack out? That's not even a saying. To crack down on the center, develop the dark squared bishop, maybe castle. We'll see what happens. Position is very, very spicy right now. So Dudin takes on f6. He takes on f6 in order to damage the structure. So now we have some isolated pawns, clump of pawns in the middle, and probably black is going to struggle to castle this way because all the pieces are right there. He takes on e4. He allows a check, and he slides his king over one square. However, because Dudin did not castle this way, now his king is also kind of stranded. It is extremely safe, but it's kind of difficult to figure out what to do with it, and maybe it will not be safe in the long run. And here, Larusas plays queen e5. He still has basically not developed 4 of his 6 pieces. They're just standing there on their home squares. And he goes for a trade of queens. Why? Because he's hoping for some sort of potential end game where he will have the bishop pair. He's hoping for, f5, e4, take some pawn space. Like, just so you understand, f5. Like, the position looks nice. He takes some space, e4, get his bishops in the game in the future, connect his rooks. And if you trade queens, you're not really going to feel the fact that you are in a situation where you're lacking development. If you want to stop your opponent from attacking you, you can bribe them, but you can also trade queens. He apparently afterward had said that he had kind of underestimated this position. He thought this position was still pretty decent for white, but his opponent chooses not to trade queens, instead opting to rotate the queen over and attack the queen side. The problem with that is that you can't actually take on b7 because rook b8 and then rook b2, and you actually just cannot stop yourself from getting destroyed. Like, for example, rook e1, the knight is hanging, and that's mate. And not only is it mate, it's actually unstoppable mate. Nothing in white's position can stop the mate. Nothing. So that's bad. Don't get mated. You can only delay mate for a little bit. So, yeah, after d takes e6 in the game, because not queen takes b7, we have bishop e6, knight f3 attacking the queen. The queen slides back. The white queen slides over to attack the f6 pawn. The queen defends it. Now we have a3, and we are trying to play the move b4. Black has a few ways of dealing with this, but he chooses to play the move a5, so that b4 is just simply impossible. And if you're wondering where this accidental cheating happened because your attention span is slowly drying up, well, here we go. In this position, white plays rook e1 to kind of put some pressure on the bishop, the queen, and the king. And the idea also can be to play knight d4, and it's not easy for black to play rook d8 because a5 is potentially hanging. And so, in this position, after the move rook to e1, black played a4 to move the knight out of the way. The pawn out of the way of the queen. The white knight jumped to d4. And in this position on the live broadcast, there was just nonsense moves. Like bishop g4, hanging the bishop, and queen f3, hanging the queen. Which means that something went wrong with the transmission. Well, that's because after knight to d4, black castled queenside in the game. Which is illegal. Because a long, long time ago, black played rook a7, rook a8. If you remember correctly, after queen b3, rook a7 was played. And in the game, both players completely forgot about this. Black illegally castled long. Now, normally what would happen is the king would be forced to move. So it would be touch move because you touched the king. So black could theoretically castle short and luckily not lose the game on the spot. And this was 100% an accident because this was the reaction of Tomas when he gave his interview after the game. It was absolutely hilarious clip. Check this out.
Yeah. Smart move. Because after castle,
you can castle because your rook was on a7 and a8, right?
Oops.
You castled in the game? Oh!
Yeah, I mean, just like absolutely hilarious moment. And I think his opponent was in low time, so he was sort of just locked in and didn't even notice. And yeah, the game continued with Black playing long castles. I had to edit a new chess.com board for this because it just wouldn't let me, do it otherwise. So this is the position, a completely illegal position that both players have agreed to. I've never seen something like this in Grandmaster level play. Sometimes my own students have done this by accident. You know, like I'm like analyzing their game after they played it in a tournament. They're rated 600 though, and they're like, oh, here I castled, and I'm like, you can't, you're in check. Or, you know, kids will just play an entire game with both players being in check. That's just what they do. And then at some point they go, oh crap, all right, well, I'm just gonna move out of check and then the game will continue. So the game continues, and the evaluation of this position after this illegal move is still balanced, but now Black is actually creating some threats. And remember a long time ago I told you that because White never committed his king safely, this king is going to potentially come under fire. Let's also not forget that Black does have a time advantage, so White is, you know, White is in serious time trouble. So here we have knight takes e6, queen takes e6, played by Larusas. He's trying to look at queen f5 opportunities, maybe rook coming down this way, and we see the problem. I mean, you're just too slow. You played g3, the queen is going to slide in here. Dudin is still going for queen a5. He's, you know, he's still trying to create some sort of attack here. A very nice move. Look at that. Understanding there is no actual danger here. Don't worry about one move checks. The king just slides up and the bishop blocks. But also, the bishop is not hanging because of this absolutely beautiful counter shot. Kabam! Kabam! Boom! Boom! Well, that move's not a boom. That's like the only move. And then mate. Queen takes e2. Beautiful move from him with these threats. White plays g3 to not get back ranked, and now we have the queen sliding in, and a nice here, this is called a rook lift, so you're like looking to swarm this king with every piece. This doesn't quite work. That looks like it works, but it doesn't. This is not a mate because the queen protects, so we have rook e5, which is known as a rook lift. When you bring the rook up and try to slide it over, it defends, and you're threatening this stuff. So here, Dudin plays bishop to g4, sacrificing the bishop with a check, and wins back temporary material. Rook d1 would just lead to king g2. It's probably still winning. No, it is winning, but the game ends with Larusas playing queen f3, swarming this king, and you cannot prevent rook d1. It's just game over, and White resigned because, well, I mean, his king and rook died together happily ever after here in the corner of the board, while the queen was doing some sort of empty hunting on that side. So a really fascinating game, which admittedly did have a very, very tense opening battle where White played a super interesting pawn sacrifice to get this swarming lead in development, but Black just, you know, hung back, absorbed the pressure as best that he could, and when his opponent didn't play the most critical response, he was able to crack the center open with a pawn break, not liquidating it too quickly, and yeah, I mean, queen trade to avoid further attack. And the second that he got an opportunity to castle illegally and then win the game, he did it. No, I'm just kidding. The second that he got an opportunity to consolidate, he ultimately led the game with a decisive attack back on his opponent. But that was absolutely hilarious. And I'm going to end this video just by saying that, you know, I'm sure Larusas is very nice guy. I'm sure he did not intend to cheat, but this is just such a rarity that two guys with a combined rating of, you know, almost 5,000, just no one batted an eye. No one batted an eye, and yeah, it's just shocking that we can see stuff like this. Online, this you would never get away with it because online it just you can't castle when it's illegal. But well, anyway. Figured I would share this game with all of you. Pick up the Slav Defense if you like it, and let me know in the comments if there's any sort of videos that you'd like to see or any sort of experiences with illegal moves. Peace out. I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here.